Never mind, you never saw this. Once I see like a 25th anniversary edition of Fear, I'm going to just shrivel up and die. Just put me in the ground already.
We're just old. We're just grumpy old men.
Yeah.
Grumpy old men tinkering with 30-year-old hardware on YouTube doing our thing.
Just let me play Commander Keen for the 500th time. This bit has to be in there, otherwise Reese is a fraud. It's all fake. It's all fake.
So I'm here with Clint from the popular retro computing and gaming YouTube channel LGR. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, so you've just got back from the Long Island Retro Gaming Expo, haven't you?
I think that's what it's called, yeah. I can never remember exactly. Long Island something retro gaming, yeah.
Yeah, that's what you said in your Patreon update, Long Island Retro something. So I went and, I went and Googled it.
They all have such similar names that they all blend together, so I can just remember where it is, and that's about it. But yeah, Long Island Retro something.
Yeah, I do need to get over there and maybe do a VCF or something at some point. Cause,
yeah, this one was, much more of just a general retro show, but it does have a larger computer presence, like quite a bit, than some of the others that I go to, which are, mostly video games and people selling video games and arcade games and things like that. Like I've been invited to, I think, the Play Expo in Blackpool a few times. I might actually be going to that maybe next year. I don't know. So I've seen that y'all have, there's those kind of things over, I don't know, somewhere. I don't actually know where Blackpool is. I need to doing some research first. I think it's on the West Coast, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I must admit my geography knowledge is pretty rubbish too. So yeah, it's up north and kind of that side somewhere.
Yeah, it's like a vacation city or something from what I gather. So
yeah, it was like one of these old sort of Victorian beach towns.
Pretty much all I ever hear is just like people used to go there in the 70s or 80s or something. They used to have a lot of seaside arcades and things. So it seems like an appropriate era or area to go to for that kind of deal. But yeah, no, I honestly have no idea what the differences are like between like US and UK shows. So I would be curious to start attending some.
Yeah, Play Expos are pretty huge. So I think it would be a good first UK Expo experience. Have you ever been to the UK?
I never have. I've actually never been, overseas that direction. I used to live in the Caribbean, so I have been over some seas, but no, I've never gone that direction.
Okay.
From North Carolina originally, and then I've kind of moved around a bit to some different places within the state. Like I said, in the Caribbean for a while, actually in St. Lucia, and then came back here, like, I don't know how long ago, early 2000s, mid 2000s, I guess. And I've been in the Asheville, North Carolina area ever since.
My wife and I actually got married in St. Lucia. So there you go. I know it well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I guess for a long time, maybe it still is. It was one of the most popular, like, marriage and honeymoon destinations in the world. So there was constantly people coming through. Yep, I've had family members go there for all that kind of thing. So, yeah, it's one of those type of destinations, but we always lived in areas that were away from all the touristy spots, which I guess it makes sense. But anytime we'd go down there, yeah, there'd be like 15 weddings happening. So, yeah, it's a beautiful place.
It's a very original idea.
Yeah.
I must admit, the only thing I know about North Carolina is that that's where MrBeast lives, isn't it?
It actually, yeah. I've ran into a couple of folks that either, worked for him or like managed property or whatever for him, because he's kind of a whole institution, but he's sort of, North Carolina is a very, very long state. So for me to get from my part of the state to over there is like a 5-hour drive, I think. And then to get to the coast, it's another 5 hours. And, it's a very long, being from North Carolina, it's sort of, it depends on the part that you're in. So I'm very much in the mountainous part, closer to like Tennessee, Georgia, that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. So no sort of chances of a collab on the horizon with MrBeast?
Oh, I would seriously doubt that. Yeah, no, it would probably be, highly awkward. I don't really know anything. I'm like, I don't know what the guy's on such a different level than anyone else that I'd be like, you're not even a YouTuber anymore. You're just like a weird rich person that does really interesting things, but is like almost seems inhuman because they're so wild. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you watch a lot of sort of mainstream stuff like that on YouTube, or is it sort of mainly tech stuff? Or
I try to dabble every time someone comes along and does something interesting or controversial or whatever, just to sort of get the lay of the land, so to speak. But no, yeah, I've been on YouTube for so long that I pretty much know what my tastes are, and I stick to those kind of lanes, So a lot of retro everything, not really just computers or technology, but stuff that's adjacent. A lot of old car content or old architecture or just general sort of like video essays on, I don't know, movies or whatever. So I watch a whole lot of YouTube for sure, but honestly, not a whole lot that's super mainstream, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting because I do watch his videos, and a lot of people say, oh, it's just trash. It's all loud noises and that kind of stuff. People throwing money around, and it's like that. I think there's stuff that like even we can learn from stuff that's kind of in completely different genres, like some of his editing, like his retention style of editing and that kind of stuff. It's just really interesting to kind of see, because the content that he makes is really, really engaging and really sort of compelling, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's probably one reason that I tend to avoid those kind of things too, because it's almost like a time sink. Like the clickbait is very good, and it's done in such a way that it makes a lot of sense, to do it that way. I mean, I actually probably listened to more podcasts that he's been on, like discussing his process and like, the reasons that he titles the way the videos the way he does and sets up the first, 10 to 15 seconds the way he does and all those kind of nitty gritty YouTube details. I find that almost more engaging or interesting than the content itself. But that's probably just, again, because I've done this for so long and watched so many things. It's like, I would rather see how the sausage is made, so to speak.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm into like Colin and Samir podcast. It's one I listen to a lot.
Yeah, same. Same.
Fascinating stuff, the whole YouTube process. Because obviously you've been doing this for 15 years now?
Yeah, something like that. I think LGR for like 14 years, and I've been doing YouTube for longer than that. So yeah, since 2006 in some form or another. So yeah, it's about 15 years, I think, of actively doing videos.
Because I remember, I remember watching your stuff back in the day and kind of thinking, I really fancy having a go at that. Because I've always been into sort of filmmaking and video making and making sort of silly little videos about things. And I just didn't have the confidence to kind of sit down in front of a camera and kind of do what you were doing back in the day. So
how long have you been actively like doing what you're doing now? Because I think I've started watching you, I don't know how or why, but around the pandemic, so a few years. So it was just kind of like one of those channels that you kept popping up in various other things that I was watching, or there was like a recommended thing. I know some of Neil's videos and things like that, but yeah, I don't remember what it was. I was all of a sudden there's like, oh, there's this Reese guy and he's doing a lot of stuff I like, and then I like binged pretty much everything that you've done over the past few years. And I mean, I'm still subscribed to Keeping Up now. So like, I think I just watched that NEC multi-CD changer the other day. I was like, oh, I have one of those.
that was a strange one, wasn't it? That was, I originally planned to do that as a short, and then I filmed it and I was like, oh, this has got like a weird ASMR quality to it almost.
Yeah.
I actually, I used the Rode wireless, lapel mics. I actually put one inside the PC underneath the drive to record the audio of that. So
it's a good idea. Yeah, I've had a bunch of those, or a bunch of requests to do like sort of ASMR style videos of the internals of computer parts and the different drive changers that I have. I've always thought that would be a good idea, but I don't know. I haven't done too many of those because it almost feels like exploitative is not the right word, but almost too low. I don't know. It feels like a thing. Like anytime I've tried to sit down and do it, I just feel like, yeah, but I want to say stuff about this. Like, look how cool this is. Here's the history of this. Here's how this mechanism works. Like, I don't know. I always end up going on some other tangent and I can never commit to do something as simple as an ASMR style computer video, but there's actually nothing simple about it either, because I'm sure you figured it out, like the microphone placement, the way it's clipping, and the volume levels, and, you know, areas of the computer are going to like become overwhelming, or like the tiniest little tapping of something else or bumping up against the floor or the table or the room ambiance makes a difference. Like, there's way more that goes into just making pure sounds videos, but yeah, I don't know. I can never make myself do something too simple in my own head for some reason.
Well, it was going to be a shot in another video that I'm currently working on, which is on the NEC PC9821.
Okay.
Actually, the drive from that machine, and I was just recording the mechanism sort of doing its thing, and I thought, I'll stick that up on the second channel, and then I don't know what possessed me to do it, but right at the last minute, I just thought, no, I'll put that on the main channel and see how it does. And people seem to really enjoy it. So
you may as well. I kind of envy the fact that you have the channel to where you can experiment with all these kind of things. Still, I don't feel like I can experiment as much, and I kind of miss just putting out like, I don't care. I'm just going to put this thing up today, and like we'll see how it goes over. Whereas I kind of stopped doing that around, I don't know, I guess 5 or so years ago now, for whatever reason. Like something clicked in my head where it's like, I feel like I have to take it seriously, but it's not that you're not taking it seriously. You're just in a completely different area of the channel's life. And I miss that area where you can still, like when you were doing the solar videos, for instance, and I know you've taken those down, but I thought that those were fascinating. And I'm like, man, I wish I could like experiment and do kind of put up those things again. But I don't know why you took them down, but I'm assuming it was probably, I don't know. I can imagine the responses I like from other folks that I've known that did those kind of things, where it was such a different deal from their channel that it was like not distracting. What's the word? Gave people the wrong impression or whatever of what your channel is. And then I can see that maybe that was part of it. I don't really know. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but I know some other folks that have done some solar stuff where it's been like, you know, that it takes off, or, you know, electrical things when their channel is really not about that. They just happen to delve into something on the side. And like, even I've had that where some of my videos have taken off that I kind of wish they didn't. And it's like, they still are getting views all these years later, and I'm still getting annoying comments about it.
It's always the ones that you don't want to do well that seem to end up doing really well, I find.
Right. Or, you know, not even that you don't want it, or you don't expect it. And then you feel like, oh, if I knew it was going to do well, I would have done more due diligence or research, or added more depth, or, you know, made it more representative of the channel. Like, that's actually, now that I think about it, that's about when I stopped doing the experimental things, is when I was posting some of these videos that just blew up for no reason, like that Doom on a calculator video. Like, that's not, you know, that's, I think, still my #1 video. And it doesn't really represent what I do at all, and it's not in my normal style. I did it off the cuff without a script. In hindsight, I got things wrong and left a lot of stuff out, and, you know, it's still up because, you know, it's like, I don't know, I guess I may as well. But at the same time, I've thought so many times about taking it down, or even the Sims stuff I've thought about taking off my channel, putting it somewhere else, you know, because like, I don't feel like that stuff really represents what I do anymore either, but there it is. It's part of the legacy at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I haven't played The Sims since the original one came out, but I do still watch all of your Sims videos religiously. You know, the one with the goats. Is that the most recent one with the spawning thousands of goats everywhere?
Yeah, breaking the game with livestock.
I mean, you don't get that on any other channel, do you? So. I appreciate it.
The video in general, I think, keeps going in and out for me. Hopefully mine's coming through okay, but
yours is perfect. My upstream bandwidth is absolutely horrific.
I'm seeing that, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I just live in the middle of nowhere, and rural broadband in the UK is just terrible. I've looked at like Starlink and stuff like that. So.
Oh, hey, you know, hey, there's a subject for you. When you talk about like a rural broadband internet as a YouTube creator, that's until very, very recently. That's what I've been stuck with. I had, I think an upstream of around 3 meg or something for the longest time. And it was insufficient. Yeah. 3 megabit. So it was like, I don't know what that equates to in terms of actual speeds, but it was horrifically slow. Like I'd be uploading one of my videos for like a day or so just to get one like 15 to 20 minute video uploaded. It was unbearable.
Yeah, I mean, I think mine's around 4.5, something like that. So I leave my videos uploading overnight. So I mean, I record everything in 4K at I export it at like 60,000 kbps or something. So it's quite high bitrate stuff as well. And yeah, I mean, it can take me all night to upload a video. So I've become very, very thorough at obviously checking them before I upload them, because discovering an error in a video after it's uploaded is just, it's like, no, it's going to take me all day to re-upload this.
Yeah, that's how it was for me for like forever, really, up until just a couple of years ago, when they finally, just as I was about to move from my previous place, they were like, hey, we've got gigabit now, you can get gigabit. I'm like, I'm moving, you jerks. Like, thanks for nothing. So, I had it for like a 2-month period or something. And then I came here, and thankfully they have it here as well. So I finally have decent internet with the gigabit connection, which makes the biggest difference in terms of being able to do those little, because I probably go through like 4 or 5 iterations of every video just because there is always something, I mean, you know how that is. Like, you want to be really technically accurate, or there's something just slightly odd sounding, or a weird edit comes through and you don't notice it until like the day after. And there's always something odd or broken. So I was relying almost entirely on like getting stuff done early and uploading it early to patrons to sort of see it first. But yeah, now I can at least iterate, get a couple or so uploads in a day, which is nice. So
yeah, that would be fantastic. In fact, it's nearly an hour's drive to my office, and we have gigabit there, and quite often it's actually faster to drive to the office, upload the file there, and then and then drive home than it is to actually upload stuff at home.
I bet. Yeah, but Starlink, though, in terms of a thing, like I actually signed up for it years and years ago. And it was supposed to be, available in that area that I was in, like 2.5 years ago, I think. It never came through. It still hasn't. I never heard anything back from them after that initial, like, sign up. They said it's coming this fall, so sign up. It never did. So I don't know if it ever, if it's even available in your area yet. I know very few people that have it.
Yeah, it is. It's apparently available, and I think they're doing some kind of deal at the moment where they've slashed a load of money off it as well. But yeah, something I need to look into potentially. The cool thing about that as well is that I could power it with the solar setup as well and kind of be completely off grid, I guess. Not that I'm a prepper or anything crazy like that, but it's just cool.
No, but it's just cool. Yeah, like I power as many little devices off of solar, like to have cameras and security stuff and some different devices around the house. And there are just all these little solar panels putting up for each of those. And it makes me want to do something more complete, just because it's fun to disconnect stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Those kind of things, it seems like an awful big project. I mean, even seeing like your videos pretty much nailed that down. Like all of these little details that you have to figure out in terms of the power of storage and the right way to connect stuff and what's even legal or this or that and the other regulations. So
yeah, and I used to get, part of the reason I took those videos down is I used to get so many emails off the back of it, and obviously tens of thousands of comments, and people even joining my Discord server to ask me questions about, would you recommend this brand of battery or that brand of battery, or how do I connect up my charge controller? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I said in the video that I have no idea what I'm doing, so why are you asking me? But obviously you have to be polite and you have to kind of help out where you can. But it just got to the point where it was just sort of dominating everything I was doing, and I just thought, no, I want to get on with the old computer stuff. That's kind of where my interests lie. So it's unfortunate that I had to take those down, but there you go.
I mean, respect for doing that, because for me, at the point that those types of videos for me that got popular that I kind of wish weren't up, they were already making enough income that it didn't make sense for me to do that, because as like, I don't have sponsorships or advertising in that kind of sense, or these other weird little add-ons that so many other people do. So I pretty much entirely rely on that and the Patreon stuff as a buffer. So, I don't know. So anyway, respect for for dealing with that in the way that you did, because I would have been like, well, it's a necessary evil at this point.
Yeah, I mean, looking at my ad revenue now compared to what it was 2 months ago, it does make you think. But fortunately, I do still have a day job, and this isn't kind of my main source of income. It would have been a completely different proposition, I think, if it was.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is I've committed to this, like, well, I just dropped everything else, and we're going to make this work no matter what type of thing. So at least you still have something reliable, as opposed to just algorithms, which is terrifying.
You said, obviously mentioned just now that you don't do sponsorships at all, which is actually one of the things that I really like about your channel. You don't stop halfway through a video to tell us about the latest and greatest amazing mobile game that you've just discovered, or VPN or whatever. And I've actually stopped doing sponsors on my own channel. I did quite a few videos with JLC PCB, who, to be fair, they were really good to work with, and they paid actually reasonably well considering the size of the channel and stuff. But I just thought, no disrespect at all to people who have sponsor spots in their videos, and I totally understand why they have to do it from a monetary perspective, especially with ad revenue being what it is nowadays. But I just thought I'd kind of go it alone for a while and kind of prioritize the viewer experience, if you like, as kind of a lofty of a goal as that may sound. But sounds like you're on the same wavelength with that. But I guess you've probably had some quite tempting offers over the years with the kind of view counts that you get on your videos.
I mean, they're all tempting. It's like they can be quite lucrative. I mean, I've seen some of the deals that other channels take or whatever, and it's like, oh, I got the same offer for that same ad read, and I know how much that was, and wow, that could have paid the mortgage for like 6 months. But it's like, at the same time, it is for me. I'm in a position where I'm able to not need to do that. I don't have staff or anything. It's just me doing this still, and considering that my videos still make the views that they do and have the Patreon backers that I do, I don't feel the need to do sponsorships unless it would have to be, I'm not against them either. And I totally don't want to, cut anybody that does them. I completely get it. But for me, I'm in a point where it would have to be something that I use already, or I just really love the product and service that much that I'm already talking about it in videos, where it would integrate. It would have to integrate nicely. And it would also have to be, like, to be honest, just a whole buttload of cash, because
fair enough.
Because otherwise, like, it's just not worth it. For some of the that I've done in the past, one of the sponsors that I did, and this was years and years and years ago, it was, I think, a 3-week process of editing, re-editing, and refilming the sponsor spot just to get it in there. And I had to put off the video. I had to delay it for weeks just to get the sponsors, a 60-second ad read. They didn't like this. They didn't like that. They didn't like the items that were right after the sponsorship. They didn't like the placement. They didn't like my bumper at the beginning. They're like, we want the sponsor before your logo. They wanted all these types of little things. Back then, I didn't know that was going to be part of the deal at all. I just was like, wow, they're offering this much money. Like, this will really help right now. I need that. And then it ended up being such a hassle. So that really soured me to even taking on more. But, and I've heard so many other horror stories too about, like, you get into this thing and you think it's one type of deal, but then they rely on this many click-throughs or this many sign-ups or this many this, that, and the other. So that limits what I would want to take even more, because I would want like a flat rate that was up front and that they don't have any editorial control over your video over. And they were like, another one that I did many years ago. They didn't like the fact that I mentioned other brands in the video. And I talk about like brands all the time, even old ones that don't exist anymore. They didn't like those, like mentioning Compaq or Packard Bell or whatever on these old computers. They're like, no, you can't show those because we're this type of brand and that'll be a conflict of interest. And I'm like, I don't understand that at all. So yeah, it was, just bad experiences, turned me off to it as well. But, yeah, there's also the fact that it just messes with the flow of the video too, especially when they have control over where the sponsorship is. I see people being like, I wouldn't mind sponsors if they were at the end of the video. Well, no sponsor wants to pay for something at the end of the video because everybody's already clicked off, or at least 80% of people. So, yeah, it's a whole minefield.
Yeah, I mean, I did those couple of reviews with the EcoFlows, which I was actually looking at buying to use as part of the solar setup anyway. I was looking at them, and then they literally just emailed me out of the blue saying, "Hey, do you fancy reviewing this?" And I thought, well, that's like £350 worth of kit that I was literally just about to buy anyway. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. So, but it's very rare for that to happen. Same with JLC PCB actually. When I haven't done anything involving PCB fabrication for quite a while, but I was actually using them for fabrication anyway. And then they literally emailed me and said, "Oh, by the way, if you talk about our website ordering process and our production process for 45 seconds somewhere in the video, we'll pay you X amount for it." And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the story of how I built this thing anyway. So, that was a really easy decision to make.
Yeah, it's, I do sometimes wish that it made more sense, or, if I had somebody to maybe handle that for me. Like most of the big channels that do take on these big sponsorships, they have at least one or two people handling all of that. For me, though, it just doesn't make any sense to divide up my time that way when I can just as easily do literally anything I want to in my video and get, somewhere close to that amount with just the revenue and everything. Like if that were to change, if YouTube's landscape were to change, or my audience were to, I don't know, not as engaged as much or something, then yeah, I could see it being an inevitability at some point. But hopefully some other system comes along that's a little better than this current, I don't know, the way things are, where people feel compelled to take on sponsors they don't really believe in, which that's just unfortunate for everyone. So
change your pace, I think. Change your gear. I think that's enough YouTube talk. We're probably boring people to tears. As fascinating as we both find it. Obviously, we're a very similar age, aren't we? I mean, I was born in 84, so that makes me 39.
I was born in 80. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm 86.
Yeah. So we both grew up in that kind of golden era of 90s PC gaming. Obviously, we kind of entered the era with very basic platformers like Commander Key and stuff like that. And by the end of the 90s, it was like Half-Life and Deus Ex and that kind of thing. So really amazing sort of pace of progress throughout that era. And obviously, I know it's one that's very close to your heart and one that's very close to mine as well. So, yeah, I thought we'd talk a little bit about our kind of differing experiences, the opposite sides of the pond, and that kind of era in general. So, I mean, what is the story of when you got your first PC?
Well, let me hear yours first, because I don't know anything. I'm sure I've told mine. It feels like many times. So
true.
Yeah.
It is a fairly obvious interview question, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, we got our first PC in '94. We had the Atari ST before that, and an Acorn Electron before that. Which, yeah, I don't think you had over in your part of the world. The Electron was like the cut down version of the BBC Micro.
I actually have one back there, but we definitely didn't have it back then. But yeah, I've since gone on. I quite like the Elk. It's a neat little thing. Nice little keyboard.
Back in those days, there was a brand called Tiny, and they were actually on like most of the high streets in towns in the UK, just selling PCs like off the shelf, fairly basic beige box PCs. And that's what we got. It was
normal sized.
Yeah, it was a desktop, which was cool. Obviously, it was kind of that before the whole tower era, and it was a 4860X266 with 4 meg of RAM, and it had Jazz Jackrabbit on it, and it had the Doom, the shareware episode of Doom on there as well. I had played on PCs before that. My dad had a work PC that he used to bring home for the weekends to do his spreadsheets and stuff, and I remember playing Wolfenstein 3D and Commander Keen on that.
Yeah, that's as very similar in a way, because our first one was a 486 DX2 66 with 4 megabytes of RAM.
Wow.
And it was 1990, I want to say it was late 92 that we might have gotten, maybe early 90. I don't know. It was around 92. Because it was, my brother was like a year old, and he was born in 91. But yeah, that was a Packard Bell Legend, the 486. So they were sort of the go-to, like, you just find those at every random shop. Ours came from a Circuit City, but you could find them anywhere. Like, they were just, the go-to cheap computer. And, but it certainly served its purpose. I don't think it had any games on there at all that it came with, other than like, I think I had the Best of Windows Entertainment pack. Some of that. That was about it. I had like Klotsky, and that was about it that I remember.
Chips Challenge?
No, didn't have that. No Chips Challenge, no Jezball, no Ski Free, none of that. It was like a cut down version of the pack. It was only a few of the games. So
okay.
it was like Tetravex, Tomb, Klotsky. Of course, Solitaire was always there, and Minesweeper, but yeah, just a couple of the boring ones. And I didn't even know that like games on a computer were a thing until I went over to a family friend's house, and he was like a musician that had this amazing DOS rig, and he was eventually the one that introduced me to like the Roland gear, and he had an MT32 and all these things. My computer didn't even have a sound card; it was PC speaker only. But I specifically remember going over there probably Christmas of 93, and he had Doom, but it was definitely not something that the parents were okay with. They're like, no, don't play that. Too many demons. And then I was like, okay, well, we've got some kid stuff on here too. I played Commander Keen, Goodbye Galaxy, episode 4. So that was one of the very first things that I ended up installing, because he gave me a copy of that, the shareware one. And I think at some point before that, memories are hazy, I know I had some kind of a copy of Crystal Caves. So it was one of those that was the first game I ever played, was either Crystal Caves or Commander Keen on that 486. And before that, the only computers I knew of were like the Apple IIs that were at school. Like, that was about it. My first computer experience was the Apple IIe in kindergarten. So that was not very much before that, though. I mean, this was still the early 90s, and that's what they had.
Yeah, it's interesting, interesting you mentioned the Apple II and the school computers, because obviously over here it was all British machines like the BBC, and we had a brand called RM. I've got quite a nice RM 486 that people always love to see. Cause
RM? Does that stand for anything?
Research machines, it stands for, yeah.
I don't think I've heard of that.
Purely just an educational market thing, but their first machine was called the RM Nimbus, which is quite an infamous PC because it used the 186 processor, and it's one of the few kind of off the shelf desktop PCs that actually use that CPU. But it's a really weird proprietary thing, and people pay really, really silly money for them nowadays. But I would quite like one for the collection.
Yeah,
the one I have is it's called the Window Box, and it was like a later sort of 486 thing that they did. But still a nice machine. I've upgraded it to a DX4 100, and it's got an Orpheus in there and all of that good stuff.
Yes. Did you have any kind of dedicated, or I don't even know if you went to any sort of public educational institution thing? I did very early on, but it was pretty much just kindergarten, and then I was homeschooled for a very long time.
Okay.
And then it wasn't until like high school that I went back into schools. But even then, that was a private school. So like my computer in school memories are weird, except for just the beginning there, where they actually did have a computer class for the kids in the the very first year of schooling. But I don't know if they did things that early over there for you too or not, or they waited a little bit later or what.
Yeah, certainly did. I mean, on the BBC Micros, There was a thing called the Turtle that was quite big over here with the logo programming language.
Right.
So it was like a robot
Yeah.
that you put on the floor that had a pen in it, and you could control it with the BBC Micro. And the teacher would lay out like a load of sheets of paper on the floor, and then we kind of had to do some very rudimentary programming stuff. Left 45 to make it turn left 45 degrees, and then forward 100, and it would trundle along really slowly. And they had like a really long parallel cable that plugged into the top of it, that plugged into the back of the BBC Micro, and it was like it's like someone's job to hold that out of the way to make sure it didn't get tangled up. And hours of fun.
That sounds pretty great. I would have been just flabbergasted to see a computer doing something like that. I was just impressed that it could print across the room. Like, that was insane to me. What are you working on at the moment? Like, do you have a series of like a backlog of things that you just have sort of in the works all the time, like I do, or is it just sort of whatever happens to come along? Because I mean, obviously having a job too that messes with scheduling, so to speak.
Yeah, I've got a really long ongoing project. I mentioned earlier the NEC PC 9821, which is just, I bought that super cheap from one of the Japanese auction sites, and it's one of those ones where you buy it and you get really, really excited about it, and then it takes like 3 months to arrive because it's got to come by boat from the other side of the world. And when it finally did, it was really badly packaged and quite badly damaged. So it's taken quite a lot of work to fix that all up cosmetically. It's now at the point where it's complete and it works and it boots, and I filmed all that footage, and I've just got so much footage to go through, and it's like, it's one of these things that just looks like a massive, overwhelming project, and it's like, how do you present that in an interesting and concise way, kind of thing. And I've also got these Atari 2600s that you probably see on the desk next to me, which
I can, yes.
These came from the Northwest Computer Museum, which I went to last year, which has recently opened to the public, which is cool. And I thought, because they did me such a good deal on a big pile of old IBM stuff and a Commodore PET, and they basically threw these in for free, and I don't really need them because I own multiple Atari 2600s already. I thought as a nice favour to them, I'd kind of fix those up and composite and S-video mods and send them back to the museum so they can use them as exhibits or sell them to make a bit of money for the museum or whatever, and obviously make a video out of that as well.
Well, good.
But I obviously watched your latest one about the NetPliance eye opener, which was very cool.
Yes.
I love that whole era of kind of dedicated internet appliances, and particularly like the hacking scene that kind of grew up around them as well, and people trying to turn them into full-blown PCs and stuff, which obviously you mentioned in the video. But it'd be cool if you maybe if you did like a follow-up going into that in a bit more detail, as you kind of hinted at and teased us with.
Yeah, I was actually started that video with the intention of like, here's how you do this, and here's what it looks like, because there's nothing except looking at old cached news articles and weather reports to do with it right now. So I really wanted to, but as soon as I got it open and started looking around the inside of it about a month ago, it dawned on me that I have one of the very last ones ever made. And by then it was like the 5th or 6th version, and they had locked down as much of it as they possibly could. There's a BIOS that doesn't allow you to boot from anything other than the internal flash storage, and I think you have to modify some of the, like a pin or something on the IDE header to even allow it to work. I have the custom cable for it, but yeah, so I was really hoping that was going to be where I would go with that, but that changed. So it ended up being sort of a generic overview of that type of early internet appliance. But yeah, they've always fascinated me as well because of, the fact that they were just PCs, and they were so adamant that they weren't PCs in all this marketing. They're like, this is for people that don't want a PC. Where the whole idea was to use something that wasn't PC based just to get on the internet, but inside it's just a socket 7 Windows 98 machine effectively. So, but the fact that it runs QNX is kind of cool, but you can't even swap it out for a more open version of that lets you do anything you want without hacking it. So I need to figure out the BIOS chip situation. I don't have any way to like reflash that or anything. So Yeah, I haven't even checked the comments yet really very much, but I'm sure people are saying, just do this. It's always just do this, but it's never that simple. There's always a little bit extra.
Yeah, they're the polite ones. It's the other ones that are like,
yes,
can't believe you couldn't work out how to do this. But
yeah.
it's like, all right, get off my back.
Especially whenever Linux is involved. This Linux is like, just put Linux on there. It's so easy. Just do this. And it's like, well, I would love to, but that is without, that is beyond the scope of this particular video. I've got to cut myself off somewhere. So, yeah. I like that machine, but need a bit more time to do it.
Reminded me of the the flipped video cameras that everyone used to use for YouTube back in like 2007, 2008, whenever it was. And obviously the idea behind those was that they were kind of single use and disposable, and it was like a matter of weeks or whatever until it was like hacked wide open and they discovered like there's like a USB header on the circuit board and stuff, and people were buying these cameras for next to nothing and modifying them and turn them into full blown video cameras, which was it was a really cool era of computing and stuff.
Yeah, they were rushing so many things out to market, just sort of repurposing existing tech or boards or something. And it seemed like, every few months there'd be a new article on Slashdot saying, you can hack this, you can put this on it. It was the same for the eye opener as well, and some of the other things that I've got hiding back there. I haven't actually looked into it yet, but I have one of these little. It's a kitchen computer, like a desk or a countertop, specifically made little kitchen computer. But I believe that's a similar situation too, where people eventually figured out, this cheap little thing can actually do way more, and it comes with a built-in LCD and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's a fun realm. That I don't really see too many people talk about. Although I did see that another YouTuber was actually working on an eye-opener video, like starting yesterday or something. They started promoting it, and I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, dude. I didn't. What weird coincidental timing. Like, I've had this device ready to cover for 12 years. And like, this is the week that I decide to release a video, and little did I know this one other person was thinking the same thing within days, I guess, of probably me having, I need to finally cover this. I don't like stepping on people's toes, but what you gonna do? It's not like we have a Discord where we all talk about everything we have planned.
Well, I mean, there are rumors of, certain underground shady retro computing Illuminati groups that kind of pull all the strings in the retro world.
Yes. Yeah, wink, wink. We don't have this.
No.
We don't have that. Yeah.
People just aren't that organized,
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember a few years ago, Neil and Nostalgia Nerd both released videos at exactly the same time about games on CD on the ZX Spectrum. It was like predated actual
right.
CD-ROMs by years, and like just completely coincidentally, this really obscure subject, and they just both happened to make a video on it at the same time. So, yes, interesting. But to be fair, I mean, when that does happen, I'll still watch both of them because it's interesting to see different people's takes on the same subject.
Yeah, same. Like it's all just adding to the fun community engagement of it all, but at the same time, there's I don't know. Like, it kind of makes me feel bad, especially being like, the larger channel or whatever. Like, I don't know. I would have much rather collaborated if I knew this other person was working on it. Michael MJD in this case, which he's got a great channel.
Yeah.
And I wish, like, dude, if I knew that you were working on this thing, we could have done some sort of crossover eye opener deal. I haven't talked to him about it yet, but, yeah, I don't know. It is, as a person viewing, I think quite fun to see, multiple views on a subject, but it is always very odd whenever they coincidentally come out, something from 20 plus years ago. You just happen to be thinking about it at the same time. Like it makes total sense if you're covering like a 20th anniversary of a game that released, because a lot of people are going to be thinking about that. But when you're talking about the eye opener, I don't know how that happened, but somehow we both had one at the same time.
Yeah, I remember there was a thing called the Chumby from around the same time. I don't know if you remember those. It was like a beanbag with a screen on it. You probably got
can't. Yeah, it's right there.
Is it?
Yeah, it's in that little bag. It's probably hard to see. I can go get it if you want.
Oh, go on. It'd be fun to have a look at.
I haven't seen it.
Why not?
It would. Chumby.
In the original bag and everything.
Yeah, this is one that I was considering doing instead of the eye opener. But
okay.
I was like, this thing needs a little. Yeah. This is one of the first 50 Chumbies ever made.
Nice. Have you earned that from new or?
Somebody gave it to me probably, I don't know how many years ago. After actually, it says prototype, not to be operated in a residential environment. I don't know. I didn't know it was one of those.
I don't know if that's legally binding or.
Never mind. You never saw this. But yeah, I did a video just talking about odd, I think 2000s computers and weird little devices like this, and mentioned the Chumby, and they were like, "Oh, I've had this one ever since it came out, maybe before it came out." But yeah, it's a funky little beast. I don't know what you were about to say about it, but here we have a visual now. So
there we go. No, I was just going to say I remember reading about them at the time because I was always on like Slashdot and sites like that, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. But they never released it in the UK.
Really?
Back in those days, 20 years ago, whenever it was a lot more difficult to get stuff shipped internationally. So I've never had a chance to own one.
It's just like a bean bag.
Yeah, it's got like touch sensors in the sides as well, hasn't it? I remember.
It does, yeah. I think, but this was also one of those things I remember seeing that people hacked into and made it do all the kind of stuff that they wanted, especially after I think the servers or whatever it connected to went down, because of course none of these were very successful and only ever lasted a year or two on the market, I think. So
I don't know if they have internal batteries in those. You might want to check out the battery situation.
Honestly, yeah. It has a wall, plug, but I don't know what that means. It's been sitting here. It was in storage for so long. Well, anyway, that's a bit of a discovery.
Yeah, that's a very strange coincidence. There you go, but it proves the point that, sometimes people think of these things at the same time for no apparent reason. So, but yeah, I remember when that was originally cracked and people putting Linux on them and all sorts of stuff. So, very cool thing. Very much of its time.
Have you ever been that type of person to just go out and buy a thing that's cheap just so you could hack it and make it do things it's not supposed to?
I'm going to say yes, but then you're probably going to ask me if there are any specific examples, and I can't think of any.
Yeah. I can't really either.
It sounds like the kind of thing that I would do.
I know one that I had the intention of doing. Yeah, it does. It seems like a thing, I've seen so many of them. I bet the only one that I can think of that I intended to do that with was the Ouya. But I backed that little computer and then got it, and it was so awful that I never bothered like changing around and opening it up, to more. I think it ran just basic Android or some version of Android, but you could supposedly make it an Android box, and I never bothered. It turned me off to the whole idea of it so much when I got it.
Yeah, I did. I recently bought a Nintendo 3DS with maybe the intention of making a video on, the whole jailbreaking process or whatever it's called, and there's like a modern re-implementation of the eShop thing that used to run on there and stuff. And I got it, and I kind of ran through the process, and it took all of about 10 minutes and wasn't very interesting. And then I played with it for 5 minutes, and it went back on the shelf. And it seems to happen quite a lot with this stuff. So
yeah, especially devices like that where it seems like, every so often somebody does a type of video like that. And it's like maybe there's something slightly new, but I feel like I've seen, between that and the PSP, like every couple of months, somebody will be like, there's a new way to jailbreak it. And it's like, what can you do that's any different than what I was doing back in 2008 or 9? I guess not much. I don't know. They've the whole market saturation of small jailbroken devices is significant on YouTube land, at least in my feed. I don't know. I'm always seeing things like that pop up.
Yeah, I mean, I did the IBM 5162 the 286 machine, which was it was like a 6 megahertz machine, and there were limitations like built into the BIOS. Obviously, you know all of this stuff, but for the benefit of everyone else, and I did a series on that machine where I was trying various things to see how fast I could make it go and how fast I could run Wolfenstein 3D on it, and that's a lot more interesting to me than just sort of running through a bunch of instructions on a website somewhere, like, now copy this file to the SD card, and it's like, I'd rather be desoldering things and swapping timing crystals and flashing BIOSes and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's very much the same for me. It's like, all of these interesting little emulation devices and little boxes that play like 20,000 games could basically not interest me any less at this point. But if we're talking something from 35 years ago where I can boost it from like 7 megahertz to 7.5 using this little thing, then, that's a good time, You're doing something that was unthinkable or really expensive or just, extremely niche back in the day. Finding like, that's one of my obsessions too, is finding all of the different boards that convert old computers to another old computer. So, the Apple II inside of a PC type of thing that I covered not too long ago. Or I actually have the opposite one that takes an Apple II and turns it into a PC, and it drops a little 8086 in there. Things like that. I'm continually finding myself drawn to those over and over. Maybe not the best performing videos, but I don't know. The audience definitely seems to get a kick out of it too. So I would much rather cover those all day long than like, the next random Chinese Game Boy clone that plays 40,000 games.
Yeah, I'm actually sat here looking at one of those. I was recently sent one of those. And,
yeah.
They emailed me and said, do you want one? No obligation to review it, but if you like it, you can do a review on your channel.
Yeah, that's how I've ended up with a few of them myself.
And then literally a week after it arrived, there were just multiple identical reviews all over my my YouTube homepage. People who had exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. It's like, well, I'm glad I didn't really spend any time on that because everyone else has covered it. So I'm not really sure what I could add that would be original or interesting. But unlike obviously the old PC accelerators and people turning machines into other machines and doing stuff that they weren't intended to do, I'm a bit obsessed with a channel called Action Retro at the minute. I'm sure you've probably come across Sean and his shenanigans. Yeah, he started around the same time as me, I think, and his channel's just grown so quickly.
I started watching y'all both around the same time, I think, so several years ago now.
I don't know how apparently he has a full-time job as well. I don't know how he finds time to keep putting out so much stuff, but yeah, it's really good. I probably need to get him on and have a chat with him.
Definitely. I'm supposed to be meeting him next month at the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest. He's supposed to have a table there and stuff, so I'm curious to finally, pick his brain a little bit as well, because he does some fascinating monstrosity projects and mixing up things that shouldn't work and stuff like that, which is it's always fun to watch, and at the same time, I don't know how in the world he finds time for some of these things, because it's all I see is, it's sometimes hard to watch videos like that because all I see is the work, and I start thinking about the workflow and like the research project involved or like the cleaning, all these things.
Yeah, I'd be interested in maybe a crossover episode between you two, some kind of collaboration or something. That'd be quite cool to see. He could do a Mac and you could do a PC, maybe. You could even do the whole I'm a Mac, I'm a PC thing, maybe.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, maybe another one of those, because there's so many of those crossover devices that did cross like Mac and PC. Like I've covered one of them, but that was sort of a Mac that was built in DOS support. But there's some of those boards by like Orange Micro or whatever and all those kind of things. I've always wanted to cover one of those. Yeah,
it's interesting. I think his channel is a good example of kind of how high the bar is for kind of people starting out on YouTube nowadays, because like the quality is so far over and above what it used to be like 15 years ago when you first started.
Yeah, at the same time I do, like I've talked to a number of folks, because I get emails all the time about people wanting to start a channel. How do you do it? What are your tips? All the normal spiel. And it's like, Now, like, the number one thing I say is don't buy a bunch of equipment yet. See what it's like first. For a good while, it always sort of bums me out when I see somebody with a lot of drive and promise, and then they like spend $4,000 in camera gear, and then they end up getting turned off to it because they jumped in the deep end too quickly, and it became too complicated too quickly. So, in a way, it's almost it's almost too much to watch certain channels now. And you know, I'll run across like a new video from someone I've never heard of, fantastic video quality and all this stuff that feels, you know, edits and motion graphics and wonderful voiceovers, and they've had a channel for like 6 months. I'm like, how does that happen? What is this? Yes, I'm kind of baffled a lot of times nowadays because, yeah, I mean, I just started with a VHS camcorder and capture device, and that was it. But obviously that's changed so much that it seems I don't even know what I would do if I were starting now, basically. So I don't even know what to recommend to people when they ask anymore, except for not to go too quickly, unless, like, I guess you have a background in videography or something.
I think, you know, when people ask me, obviously phone cameras are more than sufficient nowadays. You know, they're really excellent quality. But it's mainly audio, I think. You know,
yeah.
I think, I know it's a bit of a cliche now, but you can get away with sort of not so perfect video as long as the audio is good, I think.
The only thing I say about video is use a tripod. That's it. Like, in terms, like, you can have a great 4K, lovely quality phone video, but if it's doing this, then, you know, it's gonna make me sick and probably other people too. Yeah, a tripod and a half decent microphone, that literally is most of what you need in terms of gear. Probably some lights if you want to, like, you know, but you can get out for, you know, basically your smartphone, a little stick, and that's about it. And yeah, it's there's not much more than that. Everything else just comes down to that drive to do it after a while, and just, I guess, screen presence, the willingness to continue to improve and figure that out. But, like, you can't teach that. So, or maybe you can, but I was never taught it. So
obviously you must have a very strong work ethic to have continued doing what you do for so long. I mean, it's, you know, it's obviously you have to be kind of very self-motivated, and I'm sure there's plenty of days when you think, oh, you know, I really don't want to be working on video stuff today. I suppose it's like any job, really, but you have to keep hitting that release schedule because your income relies on it. So yeah, it's a big commitment.
To a point. There's also just a lot of stubbornness and not wanting to to feel like a failure, or, you know, a nice little healthy dose of depression here and there to really like okay, I need to get this done to, like, lift me out of this little area of, like, a feeling like garbage. So yeah, it's a combination of probably not so healthy things. But, you know, after 15 years, you get used to it. And I really don't know how a lot of other channels do it. I really don't. Like, it's admirable anytime I see, you know, somebody just starting off and just, I don't know, hitting the ground running. It's pretty wild. I really don't know. And, like, I think about it too. Like, it is what I do, or the style of thing that I do. Like, how long is that going to continue staying relevant? Because there's all these new ways of putting out content and shorter form content and other apps. And of course, YouTube is always evolving and pushing different styles of content. So I kind of never know really what is going to continue working well for LGR as a channel. So in a way, it kind of always feels like I'm just starting out, which is bizarre, but it's true.
Now you mention it, I remember you being on, I think it was one of the VCF panels maybe last year, and somebody asking everyone a question about their production process and stuff. And, you know, some of the other guys on the panel were like, oh, yeah, you know, I do this, and this, and I plan it out, and I have, like, shot lists and all this kind of stuff. And you were just like, yeah, I just play with stuff and film it and put it out there. And I was like, yeah, that sounds quite a lot like what I do. So evidently I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. The right is a very, it's a large word, but, you know, it's at least something that works for some of us. And for me, I've never really worked well with a whole lot of structure or a whole lot of planning or a whole lot of I don't know. Just all that. It's probably why I didn't do so well at different schools and jobs and things over the years. But at the same time, I'm not sure I would necessarily recommend it for everyone either that's making videos. But if it works for you, then go for it. You know, there's no sense forcing like a system or doing those kind of lists at all. Yeah. Some of us are just, I try to run this like it's still a small channel. And in my mind, it is. It really never hits that it's kind of big or something until I'm at something like VCF, where, I'm just hounded by folks left and right. Can't even get lunch, you know. That's a little bit of a weird thing, but otherwise, yeah, it's still just me in the office or the bedroom. You know, I happen to have more computers and cameras and stuff now, but the philosophy very much hasn't changed. Like, it was called Lazy Game Reviews for a long time for a reason. The laziness was there.
It's like the old the Bill Gates quote, isn't it? You know, if I want a job doing the most efficient way possible, you give it to the laziest person, because they'll find a way to streamline it and automate it.
Yeah, there's an efficiency. There's an efficiency to be found.
I do get the impression, you know, watching your channel, and kind of get the impression that you do have a very kind of streamlined process that you go through for each video. Like sometimes, you know, a while back, I think you tweeted about something, and you were like, oh, you know, I'm just playing with this today. How cool is this? And then, like, literally later on that day, it went out to your patrons as like a video, and I was like, wow, you know, how does he do this? But I think it was, it must have been a blurb, but yeah, it's cool.
It might have been, yeah. A lot of times when I do those kind of little promotions or, you know, just a teaser or whatever, it's because I've already been fiddling with it for like a month. So yeah, it's sort of, yeah. Or, you know, in a way, just sort of making myself feel better about wasting all this time. Like, okay, let me put this out there and like make double sure that people actually give a crap about whatever this little thing is that I'm messing with. And, you know, that makes me feel better about like spending that last 5% finishing the video over the next 8 or 9 hours or whatever it takes that day to finish the last edits. So it's kind of like a psych me up type of deal. Like when I had the net plants, I had been going on and off and like taking research and notes and getting bits of B-roll and taking it apart since like last April. And then a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I posted just a picture of that pizza key that was on the keyboard, just to sort of gauge interest or whatever, see if people would get excited about that. Because at that point I was feeling like I'm already tired of this machine. I don't want to do all the rest of it. But yeah, that went over very well and was getting all these, re-X's or whatever the stupid site is called now. I hate everything about that. But anyway, yeah, it started doing, you know, well there, and I'm like, okay, good. That gives me the extra initiative. Like I went after that and recorded my first bits of voiceover and things. So yeah, that's more for me than anything else.
I mean, who doesn't want a pizza key after all?
Honestly, yeah. Like I was looking up the pizza keys, like if anybody is making them for mechanical keyboards, like a special key, they are. There's like folks really making some pretty cool ones. So kind of want one now.
Maybe a crossover with LGR Foods?
Yeah. It's still a channel that exists, but yeah, I don't think I've uploaded to it in probably almost 2 years now. So yeah, that was a fun experiment, but I don't know how much more of a thing it'll be. I guess if I ever feel inspired enough to make something interesting again, but
it's funny how people still love it, because if you look at like some of the comments that you get on your regular videos, you do still see people making references to LGR Foods, like, oh, I didn't know LGR Foods had a tech channel and stuff like that, and I'm sure you probably see hundreds of those, and it's not original to you, but it does always make me laugh.
Yeah, I never really expected that to catch on. I mean, it's not like it was ever making money, but it was a thing that people latched onto mentally, I think, more than they did like in big numbers. It's just, I don't know. It has its own weird personality or following or something, where I do get so many comments and questions and like, when is that coming back type of things. It's similar to how Thrifts is, or was, I guess, where people almost know me more for that or remember me more for that than anything else. I get more questions about thrifts and foods at conferences in person than I do just about anything else, which is nuts. And those are comparatively small followings, so to speak. So, and you know, both of them I haven't done in such a long time. The foods, because I haven't really felt, I don't know, I kind of ran through all of the things that I normally make and have fun with. And then with thrifts, it's gotten so weak while thrifting in the area now that I just don't hardly find anything. I mean, I was thrifting yesterday and I think I got about 20 seconds of footage in 2 different stores. Like, that was it. So it takes ages to put one of those together now and find enough interesting stuff that I haven't shown a million times before, or just, I don't know. There's only so many times you can show like a set of VCRs on the shelf and be like, that's kind of cool. And then you move on. So it's, yeah, I miss thrifting. That's the one that I miss. Foods, maybe not so much, but thrifting, yes, I do miss that.
You tempted to try any streaming, or?
So yeah, the streaming thing, now that I finally have a decent connection, I have actually tried it, a couple of different things, just to sort of get the kinks out of it. And I'm finding that I never do. And I sort of, you know, speaking of people that I don't understand how they do this all the time, streaming. Any time that I have tried, it's either been one technical hurdle after another, you know, equipment being weird, or glitches in the system somehow, or you know, just staying on for so long. Personally, I don't understand how people do that and not going completely insane. So yeah, I think that I have now that I've experimented with it on a couple of different channels. I don't promote them or anything, but I just put stuff out there and just try like streaming games or whatever, and you know, just see how it goes. And every single time, I'm so ready to turn that system off. Be like, nope, just I'm done with that. I've tried OBS. I've tried these other XSplit or something, and there's like 2 or 3 other things over the years, and every single one of them, it just ends up being an awful interface, or just such a bad time to use it, or something goes weird with servers, and the issues with lag, both between the chat and the video, and then like latency with the captures, because I can never seem to get that right, because mostly what I want to stream is PC stuff, and you end up with weird jittering. And so yeah, don't understand Twitch streamers or people that do live stuff all the time without going insane. Maybe they are all insane now, but is that something you've dabbled with, live stuff?
Oh, yeah. Back in the very, very early days of my channel, because you have to get the 4,000 watch hours to join the partner program nowadays. And I hit the requirement at the time, I think it's changed since then, but it was 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours within the past 12 months. And I hit the 1,000 subscribers quite easily because I did December. And I did a video about my IBM 5150 that seemed to blow up, and got a load of attention off the back of that. But I was still really short on the watch hours, and apparently streaming counts. So I basically just said to a load of people, you know, on Discord and people I knew in real life, like, you know, I want to get my hours up, so I'm going to do some streaming. So if you don't mind, could you kind of come along and watch it, kind of thing? And there wasn't really any kind of plan, or it was a lot of fun, because obviously the channel was still tiny at the time, and everyone in the chat were kind of people that I knew. And yeah, I got the PC hooked up. I used one of those CGA to RGB adapters into an OSSC, it was a really convoluted setup. And yeah, we played Loom with the PC speaker, which was quite painful. I don't know if you've played that particular version.
Yep.
I did a stream of Dark Forces, you know, the Star Wars FPS. That one was quite legendary, because I basically got completely lost on one of the levels and spent about an hour just going around in circles. And of course, everyone found it completely hilarious. And people still talk about that. People still mention it to me. It's like part of my channel's lore now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's something I would very much. The thought of it kind of scares me now with the size that the channel's at. Because obviously I've got like 23,000 subscribers ish, and I just think, you know, if I go live now, will it be kind of overwhelming? Will there be absolutely loads of people? And will a lot of will like the majority of those people be expecting it to be something to do with solar power? Because that's where a lot of my subscribers came from. Will it just be people saying, where have all the solar videos gone?
Right. Get some solar optimization streams going on, just going and figuring out the best way to set it up on. There's got to be somebody doing that. But
I did have a concept actually, which that kind of combined the two, which was how long can I stream from like a 486 PC powered entirely by my solar setup? So I'd literally start at 100% battery and then start streaming and basically just keep going until the battery dies. I think that would have been quite fun to do, but yeah, maybe one day.
In terms of gaming, do you do much of it just on your own free time, or do you find it mostly like revolving around video projects? Because for me, most of my gaming tends to honestly revolve around video projects, which is depressing at times, but it is the fact of it.
It is, yeah. I mean, when I do game, it tends to be like the modern remasters of stuff that I've played 20, 30 years ago. So like obviously there was the Quake remaster a year or so ago. I played all of that through. Played literally
everything. Quake 2 one just came out a few days ago.
Yeah, it's funny. I started playing the Doom 64 remaster because I never played Doom 64 before, because obviously that was exclusive to the N64. And then the Rise of the Triad remaster came out like a week later, so I started playing that. And then the Quake 2 remaster came out like a week after that. So I've committed to finishing Rise of the Triad before I start on Quake 2, but I have bought it and installed it ready to go because I don't get much time to actually play these things. So I keep them installed and I keep them updated. Yeah. So when I do have an hour to pounce on them, I don't have to sit there waiting for stuff to update for ages before I can actually start playing anything. But yeah, it's cool. It's good to see this old stuff kind of being brought back to the fore and back into the public consciousness. Always loved Rise of the Triad back in the day, one of my favourite games. So it's cool to see it getting some love.
Yeah, for the next 5 years or so, I think we are in the exact target demographic for all of these remakes, especially of 90s FPS and things like that, because it's all a bunch of dudes in their like mid to late 30s making the remakes and wanting the remakes, and we're just all like, okay, we've got the money, we want this to happen now. It's kind of a nice time to be like our age and alive because there's so many of these coming along, and I could just know that like in 5 years or so I'm going to be seeing remakes of things that I don't think are old enough to need one. We're going to start getting to like the early 2000s remakes, and I know there's already like I think a Max Payne remastered coming, and or I've heard rumors of it. I could just imagine something like, I mean, we've already had some of the Halo remakes, but yeah, once we start getting to remastering, I don't know, certain things that don't feel like Fear, for instance. Once I see like a 25th anniversary edition of Fear, I'm going to just shrivel up and die. Like, I will just be just put me in the ground already, Yeah. That's going to be depressing. But yeah, it's nice right now seeing all these like mid to late 90s things getting their 25th to 30 anniversary.
Yeah, it's like the Xbox, isn't it? I mean, you did like what was it, the 20th anniversary video all about the original Xbox, which actually inspired me to go and dig mine out that I've actually owned since new, and I've since done the HDMI mod and the SSD mod and stuff like that. But that stuff's all really big at the minute because the people that grew up with that as kids are all kind of reaching adulthood now, and it's like, I was like at college when I had one of these. So
right,
yeah, it's interesting.
College Halo parties.
Yeah. I mean, we once did the full 16 players. So around one guy's house once.
Oh wow!
I think it was like 5 a.m. by the time we finished. But
it's a lot of CRTs.
it is a lot of CRTs. Yeah, I've got photos of that somewhere actually. That was one of those legendary nights that we still talk about. 20 years later. So
that's awesome. Yeah, it's always weirding me out when I'm seeing things like Windows Vista start getting to the nostalgic point. I get so many comments about Windows Vista anytime I mention it now. They're like, oh, that was the OS of my childhood, was Windows Vista. I'm like, oh, no. Well, here we are.
But yeah, it's not up to us old guys to gatekeep what's retro or stuff like that, So.
It's fine. Yeah, I don't get involved in any of those kind of arguments like what is vintage, what's retro, what counts as being nostalgic. I don't care. It's whatever you like, whatever you remember. It's whatever you have a hankering to revisit. Sometimes I feel nostalgic for like something I was revisiting the other day was the original Red Dead Redemption, and that was in like 2011 or whatever. I mean, that's not tremendously old, but it somehow feels long ago enough in my mind that like, man, I haven't booted that up in forever. That was like, it's been, a good probably 11 or 12 years. So I booted that up again. I'm like, wow, this looks so much worse than I thought. The resolution is terrible on the PS3. And I was just like, so disappointed. It's because, they had the re-release of that, come out on like the Switch and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, oh man, I haven't tried the original in forever. I still have it on the PS3. I don't know. Nostalgia's weird. It can be for things as recent as that. So whatever. I'll just make videos about all of it at some point. It's fine.
It's just an endless cycle. So is that the extent of your sort of modern gaming? Or
honestly, I've put like, about 120 hours into Diablo 4. So that has like been my obsession for the past couple of months. My brother and I just been making characters after characters and just running through the campaign with different builds. And they have these seasons that come out that changes the map and stuff. So that's kind of been my only real modern gaming type of thing. But even that, it feels so old school because it's Diablo. Like, it's basically the same idea as like the late 90s. So, whatever, it's just got some updates to quality of life and controls and, they swap around some of the way the weapons and skills work, but it's still Diablo. It feels old school to me. So yeah, there's not too much that comes along that's really genuinely fresh. I don't know if that's my fault or the industry's fault, but anytime I go to like a modern gaming convention, I just see a bunch of stuff that doesn't interest me, which is, I never thought I'd get here, but there we are, unless it's like, oh, hey, Max Payne's getting re-released. I'll go to that. But, I can't even remember the last new game that I played that was like a genuinely new, fresh, like IP or something. Can't recall.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I really can't. Oh no.
It's so strange to have grown up in the 90s and to think that it was only a few years between like Commander Keen and Doom, and it's like you look at stuff nowadays and there's stuff that came out like Half-Life 2 was like 20 years ago, and does modern stuff look all that much better? And I'm probably just sounding old and get off my lawn kind of stuff.
There's a bit of that. But, it's also just the fact that it feels like, to me anyway, anytime that I sort of survey the landscape of what's out there, and it's all games that I feel like I've played 100 times before. Like, okay, there's another open world game with crafting and vehicles, and like, it's the same. I feel like I've done that, ever since Assassin's Creed or whatever. It's been the same formula, with, nice little shiny graphical updates and things. Like, I played Horizon, whatever the heck, and Spider-Man, whatever the balls, and all those. Like, anytime something comes along and it's nice and flashy looking, I'll try it. But it rarely holds my attention for, longer than 6 or 7 hours, which is weird. Again, considering like whenever, we were just sort of growing up, and it feels like every month there were like 2 or 3 new things coming out that were like a brand new fresh idea, or like some crazy new technology or way of playing, or a new game mechanic that nobody had ever seen before. And I don't know, the past 10 years or so, whether it's due to age or just the trends of the industry, it feels rather stale, except for tiny little incremental quality of life updates, I suppose.
We're just old. We're just grumpy old men.
I guess so, yeah.
Grumpy old men tinkering with 30-year-old hardware on YouTube, doing our thing.
just let me play Commander Keen for the 500th time. That's that's all I want to do.
Yeah, we actually played through all of them. During 2020 and lockdown and all that kind of stuff, and it was my wife's favorite game when she was a kid. We got it up and running on my Nvidia Shield on RetroArch, and just basically sat there on the sofa and just played through all of the Commander Keen games, which was pretty cool actually. It was quite awesome.
Was the Shield? I never tried the Shield. Was that a laggy type of it? I forget what was that. Was that the streaming one, or was that the? Didn't it stream stuff from Steam or something? I don't remember.
It could do, yeah. So the Shield. They did two, didn't they? They did the handheld thing that was designed for like streaming games from Steam, like you say. But,
that's the one I'm thinking of.
They also did the Shield TV, which is the one I'm talking about, which was it was like an Android powered set top box thing. So you've got Netflix and YouTube and all that kind of stuff on there. But obviously being Android, you can install RetroArch and all sorts of emulators and things like that. And it's the same. It's the Nvidia Tegra or Tegra X1 chipset that the Switch uses. So it's actually quite a powerful piece of hardware.
So it hasn't been like killed off by like services going down or something, because it feels like every time something like that comes along nowadays, all I can think is, okay, how long is it before something kills it? Like some contract dies or some service goes down or something. I don't know. It's very easy to be cynical nowadays whenever a new like connected device comes out.
Well, you say that, but I do have one very major gripe with it. When I first got it, the dashboard was really, really useful, and it was really well integrated with the apps. And if you'd started watching a series on Netflix, the next time you fired it up, it'd be like, oh, do you want to watch the next episode? And it'd all be really handy. And over the course of a few years, the ads started to take over the dashboard, to the point where it was like 3/4 of the screen was like ads for Disney Plus and stuff that I don't even have. And in the end, because it's Android, you can set up ADB and kind of delete stuff and block stuff. And I actually just completely replaced the whole launcher on it with with something that was completely ad free. It's like, well, I spent like hundreds on this thing and it didn't have ads when I first got it. So how come now every time I turn on the TV, I just get a face full of ads? And I know a lot of people complained about that on the internet at the time as well. So, but yeah, hardware-wise, it's a fantastic little piece of kit and still updated. So,
oh, good. I'm glad they haven't like just dropped it, because so many of those. Oh my goodness, it's one thing that kind of worried me about with the Steam Deck initially. I wasn't really sure what the support was going to be like, because it seemed like I've bought into some of like the Steam boxes and the Steam controller, and I've had all these kind of things that were sort of like exciting for a few months, and then they got nobody cared after a while. But the Steam Deck has really seemed to have taken off. Like I was at this convention recently, I saw 4 or 5 of them just out in the wild, in the airport, people using them on the subway. It was like people at the convention had them. Like that thing has taken off like just about no other device like that I've seen. I'm curious if folks have really snatched onto it over there too, or what?
Yeah, no, it's huge. I remember, I remember when it was first announced and when it was first released, and thinking, it's yet another one of these projects from Valve that's just going to get dropped at some point, and it's really, really expensive, and it was one of the rare toys that I saw come along that I actually wasn't really interested in, and thought, it's just going to disappear at some point. And actually, it's just gone from strength to strength, and particularly like all the work that they've done to get all of the Windows games running sort of seamlessly under Linux.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing how well it works, really. I'll probably end up picking one up at some point.
At this point, it would almost be worth waiting for the second one. I'm 100% selling mine as soon as there's any inkling of a second version, because there are so many things about it I don't like, in terms of the way it feels, and the screen is truly horrible for a device of its caliber and price. Like all those little handhelds, every one of them that I've used have a significantly better screen than the Steam Deck does. Like it's just a bad little LCD with like not great viewing angles. It's not OLED. The response isn't great. I don't know. It's fine for what it is, but between the screen and the controls and like the buttons are too small and cramped for my thumbs, and there's a lot of weird little things like that I'm hoping for a second iteration to fix up. But other than that, I love the thing. Like it's, again, things like that Windows compatibility layer that they have going on is shockingly good. Like there's so many things on there that I've run that I never expected to run, like old Windows 98 games and various Windows applications, modern and old. I mean, just Linux in general, I guess, has come so far, like in the past 5 years, that it's just gotten insanely good.
It's surprising how few stories you hear about people buying them and then, kind of never using it or not really getting on with it. Literally everyone I know who's bought one has just been like, yeah, it's amazing. I use it all the time, so it's cool. It's
yeah,
like you say, probably worth waiting for the next one by this point, because I'm sure they have something in the works.
I would hope so. It would be nice for them to at least offer maybe a different size one. It's also just phenomenally huge compared to every other one of those I have. Like there's even compared to something like the Ouya Neo or whatever, those are so much more compact, and they have pretty much the same style of screen, but they've just shrunken everything down. And I know they're not as powerful to some degree, but I don't know. There's just a lot of room for improvement in my view. Kind of one reason I didn't do a video on it is because I thought I would just come across as a contrarian. Like everybody loves this thing. But I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, at least for my eyes and my hands. It's neat though.
Like Angry Video Game Nerd and stuff like that, AVGN, and his whole shtick back in the day was tearing stuff apart, and obviously it was quite funny, and he's still going strong. So yeah, he's another one of those channels that's kind of been around forever.
Yeah, at least with him, you could always write it off as sort of a spoof or parody or just being jokey. But it got to a point after a while, I think, when some of my videos, a good 10 years ago, maybe. I haven't really thought about it, but I was putting some videos out that were just highly critical of like really just bad games or bad computers or, certain things in certain parts of the video gaming, where I used to do these like wrap up videos talking about the games industry and stuff and sort of railing against certain companies or practices. And I don't know, I just sort of soured myself on it really quickly, I found, and tried to make a conscious effort to be more positive, or, not sugarcoat stuff, but to not necessarily seek out video projects that are specifically chosen because something is so bad, or like, I'm going to be angry about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, AVGN's Doom video was very positive, the one that he did recently that had John Romero in it. So that's a good one. I enjoyed that one.
Okay.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
So here's a question about videos. When you're doing obviously when you're researching for a particular machine or whatever, do you watch other people's videos, or do you like to, because when I'm working on a video on something, I very actively avoid other people's videos because I don't want to pick up stuff from them and sort of inadvertently copy them and stuff.
Same. I avoid other people's videos until afterward, and then I avoid Wikipedia entirely, if at all possible, because there's very little to gain from that, and you end up parroting a lot of the same points everybody else is going to be doing because so many people use it. So for me, I pretty much start with magazines, books, newspapers, and just go from there. Or if something was covered in old footage, like an old, like Computer Chronicles, a show like that were to cover something that I did, I watch that, but I try not to watch anything at all that's somebody else's. But honestly, it's not as big of a thing, as it used to be, because once I got done covering like the IBM PC and the ZX Spectrum and the Amiga, like I started covering things that nobody was talking about. And so now there's just no videos. So I was looking up the eye opener. I'm like, nobody talked about it. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to finally do a video on this. And now I guess there's like 2 videos going to be about it in like the same month, but so it goes. But I'd totally avoid that stuff because it's, it always sucks when somebody's like, yeah, you just copied so-and-so. It's like, well, sometimes it happens coincidentally, but I try to make a point of not being influenced like that.
Yeah, no, very much so. It's funny, and the reason I mention it is because I found a big old box of CDs in our attic of games that I've had since the 90s and completely forgotten about. And one of the games in there was Moto Racer, which came free with a Matrox or Matrox graphics card anyway, back in the day.
I've always heard Matrox, but
Matrox, that's how I would say it too. And I was like, oh God, I remember this game. It was amazing. And I got it all up and running. I thought, I'm going to make a video about this because surely not many people have covered Moto Racer. Did the whole thing, got it all done, scripted, edited, recorded, uploaded it. And then I searched on YouTube, and obviously the top result, and I think the only other person who's made a video on it is you. And I sat and watched your video, and I thought, people are going to accuse me of copying this because like the whole narrative of it is the same, and like some of the shots, like some of the captures that I'd done are like the same bits of track with the same bikes and stuff. And I guess it was quite a limited game, so there's only so much you can say about it. But it was just funny. It was just like, but thankfully, I think yours was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old by that point. So I guess maybe people had forgotten about it. But I was worried. I thought, oh no, people are gonna say, oh, you're copying old LGR videos now, aren't you? So, yeah,
yeah. No, people do get up in arms about silly things like that sometimes when it's like years and years apart. It's like I totally don't jive with the whole reviewer dibs or I don't know, but I do like to at least not have things come around at the same time if they weren't. I don't know, that could just look iffy, like we were saying earlier, I think, but. Yeah, it's kind of funny though. I never thought to really look up Moto Racer. That's weird. I would think other people would have covered it by now. Huh. That's a good game though. I love that game.
It's a very good game.
It's one of those I always, if I ever have like a Pentium 166, like Moto Racer's going on there every time.
Simcopter.
Yeah, Simcopter, Interstate 76, MechWarrior 2, Carmageddon. 1 and 2, yeah, that whole era. Pod, of course. Pod is one of those that if you can ever get a machine that runs it, it's really special because it's just such a pain to get working. That's another one that I'm shocked and yet not shocked that hasn't been covered, really, at least that I've seen. And I've put it off. Like, that was one of the very first games I wanted to cover on LGR, and I still haven't done it. One, because it's so special to me, but also because it's so hard to run and get the proper footage captured. And two, I just thought other people would have covered it because it was I perceived it as a popular game back in the day, but maybe it was just a selection bias because I ran like the Pod Freak fan site. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was one that completely passed me by back in the day, actually. I have to admit, Pod was quite a recent discovery for me.
Really? Oh, man.
Screamer games as well.
I always thought those were more of a European thing. Like, I don't know.
Obviously, back in those days when, before the internet and all that kind of stuff, we were all kind of living our own kind of isolated experiences. And obviously, there's a lot of crossover with kind of the more popular stuff. But, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, things that seemed normal or everyday. It's like, yeah, you figure out you were like one of 2 people that ever played this thing or something. It's always kind of funny. Yeah, Screamer is a weird one. I remember a friend of mine getting a copy of that in like a big bundle of racing games in Walmart. And he like never got the sound working because it was one of those Windows 95 era times where you get a bundle of like games that were specifically for DOS, but they tried to make it run on Windows 95 and everybody's sound drivers were odd. So it never worked with sound. So I don't think we ever played it because yeah, we ended up playing, oh gosh, what was that other one? Death Cars.
Oh,
I think it was another one in that pack. Yeah. That's another one that I keep thinking that somebody's going to cover it better. But I still have never seen any coverage. I like that one too. Sort of similar vein to Pod, but with more of a Wipeout influence, a lot of weaponry and cool sci-fi stuff. But yeah, late 90s racing games. Sometimes I feel like that's all I could cover, but people would get so sick of it. I don't know.
Okay, I guess we should probably wrap this up somehow.
Yeah, I guess so. Are you going to cut this down a wee bit or just kind of leave it?
Just leave it.
Okay.
Well, even with these bits where we're like,
yeah, this bit has to be in there. Otherwise, Reese is a fraud. No, yeah, it's all fake. It's all fake. No, yeah, I would totally edit this down to, yeah. Yep. Oh, no, it's been fun talking to him.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. I've not really interviewed anyone before, so I've been interviewed a few times, but thought I'd give it a go. I thought, if I'm going to interview someone for the very first time,
I know, just start at the bottom and work your way up.
this time next year, I'll be interviewing MrBeast and all those people. PewDiePie.
Exactly.
Okay, well, yeah, thank you very much. It's been emotional. It's been so much fun chatting about stuff. So, yeah, any last thoughts for ctrl-alt-rees viewers?
Well, if you made it this far, I appreciate it. Maybe you would like some LGR things or some Rees things. Cover a lot of similar stuff. So, I'm assuming there's plenty of crossover already. But yeah, if not, yeah, hope y'all stick around for more of what we both do.
Yeah, definitely. Check out LGR if you haven't heard of it. It's a new and upcoming channel.
Yes, and check out Rees as well. No, seriously, because I'm going to be sending this out, to my own subscriber base or whatever. So I'm sure there's going to be some new viewers coming along. This guy makes good stuff. You should watch it.
That was very kind of you to say. Cool. So I think we'll leave it at that. So yeah, thank you very much, and yeah, I'll see you soon.
Signing off. Good day and good night and God bless or something.